Hey, friendo, Steve here.
Hey, Larson.
And welcome back to the Steve and Larson Pro Wrestling Podcast. It's Wednesday, which means we're going to ruin pro wrestling podcasting by answering your hot takes, Larson.
That's correct.
That's right. So, let's go ahead and start off with Shahid Shaikh, I think is how you pronounce his name. Hopefully, Shahid, I did not butcher your name. He says this: I don't believe CM Punk's return has been successful. He continues on with a lengthy paragraph here. He says, obviously he's popular, but that has nothing to do with his story since he's come back. The Drew one was amazing, but everything since has been pretty meh. He should be champion by now. The three-way made no sense. Him losing the Rumble made no sense. Him losing the Rumble for Cody last year also hurt its momentum. It's like 10 years ago when WWE had better things to do instead of pushing CM Punk. He should have been the ultimate top guy, but he isn't. He's one of the main eventers, obviously, but he isn't the absolute top guy like he was supposed to be. Go ahead, Larson. Take a crack at this one.
I mean, I would guess by WWE's definition of successful, CM Punk's return has been wildly successful.
Yes.
I would imagine, based on Phil Brooks' own definition of what a successful return to WWE would be like, I don't know if he could have hoped for anything better than this, except for maybe main eventing Night 2 wrestling by this point. But I'm guessing within the next 2 years, that's probably going to happen. He's involved in a story with Seth Rollins that is probably going to continue on for quite a while. It might culminate in a Night 2 main event for the World Heavyweight Championship if Seth beats Jey Uso or gets that World Heavyweight Championship between now and WrestleMania. I don't know. I mean, he was out for a while hurt. Who knows what they had planned for him if that hadn't happened. It might have been him and Seth. No, wait, Cody was going to wrestle Seth because he gave the spot to The Rock initially. I don't know. I guess I would understand from the perspective of people who are longtime CM Punk fans who want to see him, upon his return to WWE, able to accomplish everything he wasn't able to do during his initial run. I understand that. There's still time for that to happen. I think right now Punk's goals are to tell interesting stories. Now, that's subjective. Obviously, the stuff with Drew was nearly universally beloved. It was a great feud. I too had some kind of questions regarding the triple threat at Mania. I think given what happened, it all panned out pretty good, but leading into it, if that was necessarily the right match for him. So I would say that his return has been a success, hasn't been as successful as everybody has wanted it to be. Of course, that's up in the air. That's subjective. Everybody's going to have their own take of that, but I would guess from WWE's perspective, wildly successful. From Punk's perspective, pretty darn successful.
You are being far too diplomatic. And of course, these are all silly wrestling things, and so yes. Shahid, don't take anything, too negative about this. But you're wildly off, wildly incorrect on this. It's been an insanely successful return, insanely successful from multiple standpoints. You said it yourself. CM Punk's creative. What did we hear? He wasn't happy with a particular angle. Triple H sat down with them. They hammered it out. How could he be anything but thrilled with that? The Drew McIntyre stuff was feud of the year. Absolutely. The match heading into WrestleMania, we were like, I don't know if this is going to work. The Heyman angle, how that match panned out. He hasn't been shoved down our throats. That's what it seems like Shahid here wants, is CM Punk just to be rammed down our throats. He's back. Push him to the moon. That's the number one way you can get the fans to turn on a guy, is if you just unabashedly push him to the moon and put everything on him now. He's lost the Rumble. He's lost the Chamber. They've done it. He has had no problems sacrificing the wins for the better stories, which he's been involved in. You can't name somebody who's been involved in better stories than CM Punk from the moment he returned until now. And that includes an extended period of time when he was injured. He was still being involved in really good stories. This has been probably the best case scenario for a CM Punk return. I don't think anything about it could have gone better.
I mean, short of him not getting hurt, and really that's kind of it. Because there was no guarantee, especially him coming in, that they were going to put him directly into a Night 2 WrestleMania main event. You know, I think from both sides, they wanted to see how this went before they really invested a lot in him. Now, seemingly everything's going really good. We haven't heard anything about any troubles backstage.
Well, there's two. Number one, you want to see, okay, how is he going to mesh? How are we going to be able to handle him creatively, and will he respond? Is he going to be a team player? So let's figure that out while we're putting him in as interesting stuff as we can to make sure that we're all on the same page, but also not rush him along too quickly, because you will get that backlash. You'll get that fan resentment. Maybe not from Shahid here, number one CM Punk fan, but he also says it's been 10 years. It's just like 10 years ago where WWE has better things to do instead of pushing CM Punk. 10 years ago, he was in feuds with Ryback.
Yeah.
They were not doing anything with this guy.
No.
So I don't know, man. Shahid, I appreciate that you are going in. I'm sorry. Stephen Larson's Pro Wrestling Podcast new number one CM Punk fan. But my friend, stay tuned. I feel like Punk, barring any injuries or whatever, will have a satisfactory rest of his run with WWE. Yeah. And I feel like, what you said earlier, I kind of feel like he's on the road to a Night 2 main event title shot or something else that's equally as really cool as that. So I don't think this is that same situation. I think they understand what they have with him.
They're just taking their time.
I think they're taking an appropriate amount of time, not just like, they're waiting too long. They're, holding off this, that, the other.
Yeah. All right, we got a couple here. Wait, never mind, we don't. You took one out. J92 here says the so-called boom period is coming on.
So yeah, the other one you're referring to, I apologize. I did take it out because I didn't realize these were going to be in tandem. Another person said pro wrestling these days is boring.
So it's been kind of boring the last few weeks. Yeah.
So sometimes if people are just being negative for the sake of negative, I'm like, give me something to back that up. In terms of the boom period having come and gone, I think that's a little bit more specific than just saying I'm bored of wrestling.
Yeah.
The boom period would refer to, I guess you could consider it both a creative and business high point for pro wrestling, which I think perhaps J92DS would consider maybe last year's WrestleMania.
That's what I was going to say too, yeah.
Where you had a lot of intrigue with the Cody, Rock, Roman, Seth stuff, and people were really high on it because it was, oh man, this is really Triple H doing his thing here. No more Vince, don't have to worry about that stuff.
We were a couple months, I'd say the boom period was probably, I don't know, the peak of the boom period was definitely WrestleMania 40, but the months before that you had Punk coming back. There was just a lot of stuff happening. Rock came back. There's, generally speaking, a lot of excitement about pro wrestling in WWE, at least from about, fall of 2023 to WrestleMania 40. It just seemed like there was buzz. There was a lot of people talking about it. And following WrestleMania 40, some of that buzz, if you look at the numbers are great for WWE. They're still selling a ton of tickets. Ticket prices are astronomical. People still paying money for them. So
thank you, Klarna.
I guess so. Yeah. All these wrestling fans going into massive debt to attend these shows.
Man, hey, WWE's on fire. Dude.
20% interest? Anyway, sorry, yes.
Here's the thing. I think, and we've seen this comparison before, so I'm not original with this. But if you want to consider WrestleMania 40 to be akin to WWE's, Avengers Endgame, you can't keep going higher and higher. You have to have your big thing and then, to a degree, rebuild to the next really big thing. I think they look at their programming schedule. For example, this year obviously is the year of Cena. It's his retirement tour. They have a new shirt for every city they're in, and they decided to pull the trigger on something that we haven't seen before, this version of a heel Cena. and that's sort of their A story, and then everything else falls in line behind that. It hasn't been without, it's intrigue. We've had a couple of debuts, Penta, Phoenix, returns, Aleister Black and Rusev, among others. But expecting something as big as what we got at WrestleMania 40, which was the culmination of like a 4-year bloodline story. You gotta reload. It's not all gonna be at the top. And right now, I think they're doing a decent job of reloading while having some pretty decent television on the air. I know SmackDown being 3 hours has been kind of a low point, but Raw is usually consistently pretty fun. Even though, like this week, for example, nothing huge happened, but all in all, it was a pretty breezy 2.5 hours of Raw, and everything had its place. So is the boom period over? Yeah, probably. I don't know that I disagree with this. That's not to say, oh, it's all shit from here, though.
Yeah, to a certain extent, I feel like the maybe there is a perception to a degree, and it's not a massive one, that we had one of the best stories in pro wrestling history with the Bloodline. And Triple H inherited that and saw it through to a very satisfying finish at WrestleMania 40. And we've talked about this quite a bit, so again, this isn't something new. That we as wrestling fans were spoiled with, generally speaking, week after week after week on SmackDown during the height of the Bloodline saga. There was something really interesting happening on SmackDown week after week after week. And maybe it wasn't a huge thing like the trial of Sami Zayn, but we get some development that lead us to want to tune in next week to see what the follow-up is going to be. And while there's still been some massive moments since WrestleMania 40 to now, the one thing that's missing from the show is that overarching saga that keeps you invested on what's happening on that particular program to that same degree week after week after week. I'll use this as an example. And it's still really early, so we got to be patient with it. But when Paul Heyman aligned with Seth Rollins at WrestleMania this year, that felt like a seismic shift, at least in terms of what should be happening on Raw. And when Braun joined up with them, it's like, oh, okay, they're following through. But since then, it's just kind of been like, all right, booking stories is normal. The seismic nature of that alliance between Heyman and Seth doesn't feel as huge as it did initially, because I don't really feel like they've done much to necessarily build upon it. At this point, it's a matter of weeks afterwards. So in terms of follow through on that storyline as one example, it feels like they're setting that up for something huge, but the follow through hasn't lended itself to the similar feeling of magnitude.
Triple H, I'm going to sound like an apologist here, because I'll say this. I think there's a way to have your meat and potatoes and your building blocks and still keep it compelling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's an easy thing to do.
No, it probably isn't, no.
Because I do feel like, for example, it was just last week that Heyman came out and said, Jey Uso, we're coming after that. That's a pretty big deal. So he's setting things up. Week to week, it's not always going to be trial of Sami Zayn. You're right about that. Now, can they find a way to make... I'll put it this way. This week on Raw, we had CM Punk and Sami Zayn form a loose alliance on pretty shaky ground. They seem to have dropped a couple hints that Sami Zayn might not be trusted. We don't know. If that plays out at Saturday night's main event or afterwards, then maybe we can look back on this and be like, oh, look at the groundwork that they set up here. And so I do think that we need to, I feel like they are placing an importance on building every little piece. Now, you do want to try to program your stuff so that around those pieces, you have other stuff that's like really keeping you engaged. And it's like, oh, I want to know what's happening next. And maybe at some weeks it feels like there are too many pieces and not enough big things happening.
It feels like too many things are kind of on the same schedule. In terms
Yeah,
of the
exactly
ebbs and
right.
flows.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like everything's building concurrently rather than staggering. Yes.
Like Io and Rhea, going through that tag match, winning decisively, and then Rhea once again looking at Io's title. It's like, okay, so there's another piece right there. But yeah, the staggered approach would probably work a little bit better. But everybody is sort of coming out of the gates at the same time because WrestleMania finishes and then everybody begins anew, kind of. So yeah, I think it probably would behoove them to, give us a couple, bigger moments. But it is what it is. I still think Raw's pretty interesting, and I still think SmackDown can't wait for that to go back to 2 hours.
Same. Hot take here from Femtrap TA.
Femtrapta, yeah.
Or Femtrapta, says Karrion Kross will be the Daniel Bryan of this year's Money in the Bank. If Kross doesn't win or even qualify for the match, the negative reaction will be impossible to ignore.
I don't know how quickly the in-arena audience is going to follow the lead of the internet wrestling community.
Yeah, if history's been any indication, the amount of people that are in arena that actually pay attention to like wrestling stuff online is relatively small. So there might be a groundswell of support from that 10, 15, maybe 20%.
Well, there has been, though.
There has been.
There has been, for example, Kross mentioned this in his documentary that he did on his channel. When he was eliminated from, was it the Rumble? Eliminated from something. There was, maybe it was the Andre. I think it was the Andre. Maybe not. I don't know what it was. Anyways, he was eliminated from something. And there was and the crowd was like, yeah, it was the Mania thing. Yeah, it was the Mania thing. When he got eliminated from the Andre. The crowd booed. And so I'll put it this way. It's going to be interesting to see, because what is he? He's on Raw, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't on this week.
Nope.
So it's going to be interesting, because if WWE keeps him off TV, the crowd's not going to have anything to voice their opinion at it.
Mm-hmm.
If he's in a qualifier and he fails to qualify, which at this point I would think is going to happen, unless he's in there with like a Tozawa, then depending on who if it's like Kross versus AJ in a qualifier, we don't know what the qualifiers are yet. We know they're starting on Raw, I think.
Yeah, they're starting on SmackDown this week.
Oh, they're starting this week on SmackDown. If he's in there with AJ and AJ's really popular.
Mm-hmm.
If he's in there with somebody else who isn't quite as popular, then maybe you'll hear that groundswell pipe up. I think that's a possibility. But they got to put him somewhere in order to get that reaction or not.
Yeah.
And if he wasn't even on Raw this week, I mean, it's possible that he's in a qualifier against, I don't know, who's a lock to be in on Raw in a Money in the Bank match.
Seth Rollins.
Seth Rollins. Yeah, if he's in a qualifier against Seth Rollins. If he's in Seth right now is a bad guy, and people have no problems booing him. If Kross is out there and he loses, they might boo that. They'll boo that.
But Seth is also, while a heel and does get some boos, he is still wildly popular as a performer.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, I think that people will be willing to boo, man, you put this guy in here against Seth. We all knew this was going to happen and we're not happy about it. You know what I mean? Like, I could see him getting
I could see
some
it. I could see a
support.
portion of the fans reacting that way, but to the level of like Daniel Bryan.
No, I don't think there's going to be anything like that anymore, because I don't think there's anybody. Fans aren't the Daniel Bryan thing was as much about them really loving Daniel Bryan, which they did, and also like, God, you're programming a bunch of shit that we don't like.
Yeah.
And WWE's not doing that now. Like, the fans are pretty happy with WWE's product.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know that there's many people that they would outright boo.
Yeah.
Oh, because they win something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Kind of apples and oranges to a degree.
Yeah. I can see why you put this one in from Shane Canavan. Hot take. Raise Your Fish is a good theme.
Brace your fish.
Motor City Machine Guns theme song.
Def Rebel, I think rightfully so, catches a lot of heat, a lot of flack. This is one that I kind of like their theme song. I think
the riff is really good. The main riff is good.
It is. I mean, it's very reminiscent of Queens of the Stone Age, but it's a solid song. I think I think it's a really good one. I wish that they would have had. Well, they have lyrics at the beginning, but in the main bulk of the song.
Yeah.
More songs need lyrics. It makes them feel unique.
Yeah, I could understand that, but at the same time, I don't know. There's this kind of a tradition in wrestling of, for the most part, you get an instrumental theme. Maybe because then you listen to like Damian Priest theme where he's doing the vocals and it's like off tempo.
Well,
with the music.
That's different. Hot tub.
All rise.
But
it's it's like a different tempo than the song itself.
Yeah, it's so weird. But no, Braise Your Fish. No, I'm down with that one. I like that one.
Yeah, it's a catchy tune. Tune. Hot take here from Jake Jones says Elimination Chamber and Backlash were more entertaining than the Rumble and WrestleMania this year. Of course, Jake qualifies this saying partial bias because I was at Backlash. Lol.
Hey, you know what, man? I think we've heard plenty of people in our comments say the same thing in terms of Backlash and Mania. At the very least, the main events.
Yeah.
And I think there are plenty of people who are like, holy crap, Backlash actually from front to end was a pretty entertaining show.
Yeah.
And WrestleMania kind of had ups and downs.
It did. And, I don't know how much of it is due to the presentation of WrestleMania, which is all about, hey, look, WWE, we're super huge and popular. Look at all our corporate sponsors. Look at all these celebrities who enjoy our product. I mean, WrestleMania is just as much about advertising how popular WWE is now as opposed to putting on wrestling matches.
Yeah, but come on, dude. If everything was on the level of the women's triple threat or the men's triple threat.
Well, yeah, we wouldn't be making that statement, but it wasn't. So,
well, no, I think that to me, that's what my point is, though. That's the more important thing is the matches. Like, is it good? Are the matches good?
They put too much emphasis on all the other stuff and not enough emphasis on the matches.
Creative is too busy worrying about the advertisements.
Yeah, how they're going to integrate all the advertisements into the matches.
All right, listen.
What
I don't care.
Matches they're going to have.
I don't care. This match has no build. Let's figure out how to get Cinnamon Toast Crunch in it.
Can we have someone dressed as Drumstick in the crowd right before the main event night 2?
Yeah.
Because that's what it was. It was like, maybe focus more on putting together an entertaining night 2 main event as opposed to having dude in drumstick costume out in the crowd.
Listen, I'm in the Hall of Fame this year. I'm going to put 4 or 5 video packages of me. That's what Triple H was worried about.
Yeah, that's what he was more concerned with.
Entrances. Absolutely. He was scared. All he cared. He was like, how about this? Multiple car entrances.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it was a bit much. Shotgun Sean has a hot take here. Whizzing through these. Says, Aleister Black's and Rusev's debuts have been lackluster. Having a competitive match with The Miz and feuding with Otis is not what people expected or hoped for.
Well, part of it, I think, is just like, so many of the... There's a couple things. You got to reintroduce these characters to your current audience. You got to establish who they are now. And then a lot of the top names are probably already penciled in for stories going back a couple months. Probably before either Aleister or Rusev re-signed with the company. So they kind of have to feud with people who don't already have things set up. And, The Miz is just one of those wrestlers that he's going to be one of those guys because he's established in WWE. He's been around there for 20 years that either people coming into the company or people returning to the company are probably going to feud with. That's kind of his role right now. As far as the Otis thing, I guess it makes sense with Rusev's kind of mission statement with him, finding the talent that haven't lived up to their potential and trying to get that potential out of them. I mean, Otis won Money in the Bank, lost it in a court case to The Miz.
Speaking of The Miz, this is actually a hot take I agree with, man. I think the reintroduction has not done them any favors at all. They should be booking this in a way that, come on, man. Do we really need more Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre? How about Aleister Black shows up? Damian Priest shows up. He's ranting about Drew McIntyre. And instead, lights go down, lights come up. Aleister Black is in there with Damian Priest, gives him a black mask. That's a good feud right there. For both those guys, that's a good feud.
What you described basically happened, but it was The Miz instead.
Yeah, man, it's The Miz, Larson. It's The Miz. And I know you're saying that tongue in cheek. But yeah, man, let's get Damian Priest that feud.
Well, I guess
Because
WWE just feels like that we, the audience, haven't gotten enough Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre.
hey, and you can rope Drew McIntyre right back into that and have Aleister Black mixing it up with two former world champions. Like we always said, get them in there with people who, at the very start at least, then he can fall back down to the Miz and work his way back up. But let's see him mix it up with people that, his ceiling warrants.
Let me ask you this. Are these re-debuts any sort of indication of Aleister and Rusev's prospects in WWE during their second tenure? Now, I mean, you can make the case if someone returns or comes to the company, debuts at a very high-profile level, only to kind of settle back down the mid-card to build back up. All right, obviously, I'll use the Megan Bayne example. I know it's a different company in AEW. It's obvious Tony Khan sees future champion in Megan Bayne and debuted her at a very high level, feuding with the champion. She came up short. She's going to have some mid-card feuds and eventually make her way back up to the main event. And this is like something we've seen in wrestling for a number of years. Roundabout way of saying, are Aleister and Rusev doomed for a mid-card purgatory for the remainder of their run in WWE? Given how they were brought back.
Man, I hate to say this. I'd be surprised if either of them were on any one-night premium live event for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I don't think that's a huge stretch to say because the talents, the talent level of the roster is so deep. And if they're doing, for the most part, 5-match cards, 2 years from now, are they making it on premium live events, Steve? That's the question.
Dude, instead of Gunther coming out last night, what if Rusev comes out last night? Says, hey, you're what I'm talking about, even though he's world champion. But he's like, hey, buddy, I want you after Logan Paul. And then, at Saturday or after Saturday, the Raw episode where the thing happens, maybe Gunther then comes out and wonks that finish or something. I don't know. You put them in a position where you test out what, is this a possibility? Are people going to respond to this? Because it makes them look big.
It does. You put the perception in people's mind that immediately that's the spot they should be in.
Yeah.
And they're going to have a little, a little time there, fall back down, but just you wait, you'll see them there again eventually. Yeah, that's what again, this is a way of debuting or re-debuting people that goes it back for a long time, number of years.
Mm-hmm.
You put someone in a high-profile situation, they end up losing the feud, you bring them down to mid-card and build them back up.
Yeah, but I was pretty perplexed when Rusev just debuted against Otis. It says to me that, like, you know what it kind of says to me, man? You guys left. You're going to have to claw your way back up. Because you're not going to go to the other place. We don't have to worry about you because you ain't going to the other place.
No.
Hey, we'll give you a spot. And if people like you, they'll boost you up.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah, it's like you get Ricky Starks over, and it's like Ricky ain't going back, but it's like, hey, we want to show people who have never had the WWE experience what you can do here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for Aleister and Rusev and Andrade for that matter, they're all U.S. champions at one point.
Yeah,
they leave, come back. You got to claw your way back up, man.
That could be.
Hey, man, it's May. Of course, we've got the May Predictions Challenge ongoing right now. You can join in on the Predictions Challenge by going to patreon.com/Stephen Larson, clicking on the Friendo Club setup, or by clicking join right here at youtube.com/Stephen Larson. Costs $5 a month, but you get access to the Predictions Challenge, which is a lot of fun. You get access to the bonus episodes and the question threads. There's still enough time to get points, and a lot of them, because we have 2 more events in the May Predictions Challenge. And you get an access to, you could possibly, I don't have the thing right here. I had the thing and I lost
I have the shirt here. You want me to show the shirt?
Yes. Oh, here it is. Now I got it. Yeah, you can do it and I'll do it here too. So you get a hat. This is a Backlash hat. It says Big Blue Predictions Champion. And then you get this shirt from 2011. We only made 4 of these things. We just made them for us. It was our very first shirt.
It's the only one we still know where it is.
Yeah,
I don't know
no
the other
idea.
one. I don't know
Pretty
the
sure
other
I
three are.
donated
have no
my other
idea.
one to like Goodwill or something. So yeah, hop in on the predictions challenge. And yeah, let's go ahead and continue with these hot takes.
Let's do it.
HHS bass drummer says, Finn Balor, yeah, should have left WWE when he had the chance. There's no way he'd be treated this way in any other promotion. Hey, bass drummer, I got some bad news for you. Finn Balor would be in the exact same spot, making a lot less money if he was in New Japan or AEW.
I don't know. If he was in New Japan now, he might already be champion at this point because,
They're in dire straits.
yeah. If,
That's a good
if
point.
Prince Devitt made a return to New Japan, yeah, he would be taking that title off Hiroki Goto.
Yeah, maybe. I think Finn's in a good spot. He's going to get a huge push this year. I do think it's not impossible that he'll take that IC title off Dom.
No, it's not impossible, but I don't think an Intercontinental title run is necessarily the definition of a huge push either.
Well, I'm not saying. It was promised.
No,
by
it wasn't
Dirt
promised.
Sheet
It
on
was
Twitter.
reported. It was reported. It's not like Triple
Yes.
H said at a press conference, Steve,
Ah.
I say this to you,
Oh,
and this is a promise.
Okay.
Finn Balor,
yes.
massive push in the year 2025. Those words never came out of Triple H's mouth.
And then I would say, break it down. Triple H and Finn Balor.
Say, I got 2 words for you. Finn equals pin. No, Finn equals win.
Yeah. That being said, Finn has had plenty of chances to leave WWE, and he hasn't. And he's still on television every week. He loses a lot, but he's still the coolest looking guy they have.
He's a very well-paid depth guy at this point.
He is, and I think that he's probably happy with that. Where would he be in AEW if he went to AEW?
He'd probably be involved in something with the Elite.
He'd be a trios champion. That's what he'd be.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think, I don't think his lot would be. You're probably right about New Japan, but what would you rather be? Getting the belt off of Goto or being on, Monday Night Raw every Monday night, basically leading a faction that's of some prominence, probably going to be involved in a decent story there.
Well, also probably making a ton of money.
And making a shit ton of money. Yeah. So I think he's probably fine where he is. He's had plenty of opportunity. I want to say he recently re-signed.
Just in the last couple of years, I think he's probably fairly content where he is, yes.
Didn't I just see this recently? July 9th, 2024. He said his new contract is for 5 years. So he's got 4 years. So he just signed a year ago. He had an opportunity last year
Didn't do it.
to beat Feet, and he didn't do it.
Didn't do it. All right, hot take here from Grabsack.
Grab sack.
Says the continued release of high potential performers by WWE, coupled with the simultaneous recruitment of individuals destined for mid-card roles or to go nowhere, is frustrating. Example, the release of Dakota Kai and the hiring of Jeff Cobb.
Okay, so I feel like this is trying to look for the word. I'll put it this way. Let me be really diplomatic about it. I absolutely sympathize with the frustration that fans feel when they see people that they enjoy. Clearly, Grabsack here is a Dakota Kai fan. Grabsack used Dakota Kai as an example.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Grabsack's also a fan of, I don't know, who else was released this past time? The Party
Strowman.
Girls. Braun Strowman. Yeah, sure. And then they bring in new people.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't feel like one is necessarily related to the other. And if it is, it's kind of loosely. It's with these people, this group of people that we have, they're people that we don't really have much more creative use for. There are people that, even in the roles of enhancement talent, We'd prefer to use others that haven't been tested out yet to see if maybe they can move on past that. Because in our estimation, the way we're doing creative, we don't see much more for these people. So let's let them go ply their trade elsewhere. Meanwhile, we need a spot for the guy that Solo is going to use to basically replace Jacob Fatu in his own personal bloodline. Jeff Cobb is perfect for that. We like Jeff Cobb. Let's bring Jeff Cobb in. So it feels more like for the people they let go, there's a number of people in NXT and Evolve that they're going to need space for. They can't think of a way to properly use these people. So instead of keeping them on payroll, let's put them out there. Meanwhile, if there's other prominent people that they want to hire, they're going to hire those people. It's an ever evolving thing that I understand fan frustration when some of their favorites are let go or some of their favorites aren't being used properly. I get that. But I personally don't think that one has much to do with the other.
I understand the frustration. There's been a number of times where we've seen in years past where we've seen someone who we're fans of seemingly being underutilized in whatever company it is. And then they find their way to another company and the prospect is, what can they do there? But there is a great amount of unknown regarding anybody getting released. I'm sure Dakota Kai, she's exceptionally talented. She'll land somewhere and do great work because she's really good. But, until that happens, there's a degree of unknown about, all right, where can I watch this performer whose work I really like? How can I continue to watch their career unfold? And there's that period, 90 days for her. You got to wait. Hopefully she shows up somewhere. I don't know how related the signing of Jeff Cobb is to the releases, if any, because we'd heard that he was signed before they were announced. He's been signed for a while, or at least he was included in their internal roster documents. And kind of regardless if there's any connection between talent being released and them signing new talent, like I guess the people, evidently the grab sack is making this argument. There might be the perception is like, well, you're letting go of these established talents in the company who, yeah, granted, as you mentioned, they may not have anything for creatively at the moment, just to bring in somebody else who in a year's time could be in the same exact position on the card they are now. Again, I don't think there's necessarily a connection in this example, but again, it's a situation here where someone is trying to make that case. So I wonder if there is a certain subset of fans who are going to be like, well, they let go of this performer to bring in this person, even though they may be completely unrelated.
Yeah, if Grabsack is saying that, then I'm sure Grabsack's not the only one who feels that way. Mm-hmm. I personally don't feel like one is related to the other. It's, hey, we need somebody that works here, or we've seen it's one of two things. We need somebody here who's going to work in this solo henchman position. Jeff Cobb makes a lot of sense. Let's go ahead and bring him in. You're not going to use Dakota Kai for that. You're not going to use Braun Strowman for that.
How come they haven't used Hikuleo for that? Where's Hikuleo at?
I'm sure there's a reason for that. I don't know. We've had people.
He's been signed there for like a year.
Yeah, he's been signed forever. I know. I want the Hikuleo deal. Just get paid to sit around. I'm sure he's not sitting around. But it's like, wrestling has a grand tradition of bringing in new names, and signing new people. And hey, this is somebody who's built his brand up over here. So we're going to sign him and bring those eyeballs that like Jeff Cobb, and we're going to use them to bolster our product. The people they release can't do that because they've been there forever. They've been there for a while. So I'm not saying that to be insensitive. You and I got laid off. We know what it's like. It sucks. I don't like it. That being said, everybody who gets into this business and any business anywhere or any job anywhere knows that there's a possibility you're not going to be in that job for 20 years. So it's just a reality of the business. And I don't think it's insensitive to say that's just a reality of pro wrestling. And luckily, there are a lot of places now where you can ply your trade in different places. So
That's why having a company like AEW, whether you like their product or not, is great for the wrestling.
Is great for the wrestling business. Exactly.
Because someone who got released from WWE can go there, still make a really good chunk of money to wrestle on cable television. And 10 years ago, that wasn't the case.
There was no other machinima when we got released. Otherwise, we would have gone that other place. Instead, truck it along on our own.
All right, hot take here from Benny Omega. Jeff Cobb has just as much potential talent-wise as Jacob Fatu, but I fear that Cobb will be fed to Fatu and then slip down the card. Look, I love Jeff Cobb. I think he's great.
Uh-oh.
He doesn't have the aura of Jacob Fatu.
Anti-Cobb. Interesting.
No, I think he's great. He's a phenomenal in-ring talent.
Confirmed. Larson hates Jeff Cobb.
He doesn't have the same level of presence that Jacob Fatu has.
To be fair, like nobody does.
I know, that was going to be my next sentence.
Jacob Fatu's that guy, bro.
He is.
He's that guy. Jeff Cobb's great.
Jeff Cobb's awesome.
I love Jeff Cobb. I don't know about you. You sound, those words didn't seem like you love Jeff Cobb.
The first thing I said is I love Jeff Cobb.
I love Jeff Cobb. But let's be honest, he's no Jacob Fatu. Nobody is.
Very
Jacob
few
Fatu,
people have that same level of aura and charisma as Jacob Fatu.
Finally, we've got a Sacramento guy who's got it. It's very rare to come. Jeff Cobb's been through Sacramento before, hasn't he?
Yeah, he used to live here.
Yeah, he used to live here. That's right.
Yeah.
We saw him at Spring Pro Wrestling.
Yep. The King's Catalog, hot take. The Wyatt Six will never be as hot as they could have been.
Never. Never is a big word. They're certainly kind of starting over, though, aren't they?
Yeah, they pretty much are starting over. And I don't know if they kind of pissed away most of the momentum they had anyways, for the most part. Even, they had that awesome debut where they seemingly murdered everybody backstage. And then, they had the VHS, promo bits that Bo Dallas was doing were interesting. And like the last real moment of intrigue is when Adam Pearce opened his office door and Bo Dallas is sitting in there. And they really followed through with that.
I know. And that was before I think he had whatever injury issue was plaguing whatever. Yeah, it's a real bummer. It's a real bummer. And this is one of those things where, because there's been like such little actually reported on it, it would be, let me put it this way. It would be probably not wise for us to speculate, but you got to think there's a larger story there that simply isn't known as to why they're not on television. And maybe it is as simple as an injury thing, but it is pretty crazy. They had such a huge debut and then it just sort of petered out. And maybe it's creative, maybe it's injury, maybe it's something else. I don't know. But it certainly is an odd situation. Mm-hmm. And hopefully they'll get back on TV because they were freaking awesome for a second.
Yeah, they were. Hot take here from Gaz Jones. Says Jade has had some of her best matches in the past few weeks. Not bad considering both her and Nia had a reputation for being below par in ring. But not enough people are praising her now that she's improving. Yeah, the matches she's had since she's returned from her time off, or time out with injury, whatever the case was. Yeah, I think her matches have been really, really good.
Yeah, the one with Nia, I was keeping a kind of a close eye on, because it's like Nia's not exactly known as like somebody you put in there. Oh man, Nia's going to lead you to a really good match. Nia sticks to what works for her, and what works for her works. Mm-hmm. Jade, they have determined, it seems like they have found a really sweet spot for, hey, let's give us at least one time per match where she does something really, really cool from like a dramatic feat of strength perspective, and getting better at her fundamentals. Yeah, I'm really excited to see where she is a year from now.
Same. Because
if she keeps improving in this manner and she gets a lot of reps, she is going to have like the total package. She really will.
Yep, absolutely. Gorman here with the hot take says Macho Man is the most underrated performer in wrestling history. He's never included in Mount Rushmore conversations, but he deserves to be at the same level as any other top guys who routinely get included in those discussions.
Hey, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
I was thinking about this. Now, it's probably not a coincidence, or it's pretty obvious that, like, whenever Hogan, for example, had, like, a big match against somebody, whenever Macho Man would have a match with that same person, it'd be, like, way better because Macho Man was just a much better worker.
Yeah.
But does it surprise you at all that, like, him and Steamboat had that meticulously planned out match?
Mm-hmm.
And besides, like, I mean, there are other matches were really good Randy Savage matches, but, like, it surprised me that wasn't something that he continually did, or at least is well known that he continually did, like the meticulously planned out 20-minute, this is going to be a banger ass match.
I'll say this, back then in WWF, there wasn't a lot of other guys like Ricky Steamboat that he could put on matches like that with.
Yeah, but
I mean, he got a great match. He got a really good match, out of Warrior at WrestleMania
he did
7.
I got like 4 stars, I think, from Meltzer.
He had a fantastic match with Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8. His match against Hogan at Mania 5 is 75% a good match because it's 75% a Macho Man match. He had a lot of other good matches during his time, especially in WWF. He had a lot of stinkers too, but you know, there wasn't as many people that were work rate guys.
It wasn't exactly a work rate company back then.
No, it was not at all. You know, so when him and Steamboat put on that match at WrestleMania 3, it was so kind of against the grain of what WWF was doing for the most part. That's why it still stands out to this day, because it's wrestled like a 2025 match.
By the time he got to WCW,
he was beat up and wasn't quite the same performer. But yeah, I don't. You know, I think people generally regard Macho Man very highly.
Sure.
Because he was a work rate guy in the era where work rate wasn't a priority. At the same time, though, he was still one of the best characters on TV any given week and delivered awesome promos.
I mean, the thing is, when people look at Mount Rushmores, you got to look at what they're looking at exactly. You know, it's like, okay, well, who's in general? What's the Mount Rushmore pro wrestling? I mean, people would say
Hogan, Flair, Stone Cold, and Rock.
Right. Or, you know, might throw Cena in there.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, because Hogan was the face of the company, Flair is generally known as like the greatest worker of all time. Plus he was the face of the NWA basically. Plus he did all that stuff in the WWF. You know, you look at who the top names were, the most prominently featured guys, as opposed to, you know, well, who was actually the best. And then if you look at who the best was, you start looking, who were the best workers? The guys who were around when it was a work rate company. You're looking at Shawn Michaels, you look at Ric Flair.
Daniel Bryan. Yeah,
Daniel Bryan. Exactly. And so he probably was like the best worker for a period of time in WWF when work rate really wasn't a thing. And so he wouldn't land on that kind of Rushmore. Now, if you said, okay, who is on the Mount Rushmore of 1980s WWF? Yeah, of course he's on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but usually when people say who's Mount Rushmore, you're looking at a 40-year span of time.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I guess also too, if he had a longer stretch of kind of being the 1B to Hogan's 1A.
Sure. Yeah.
If it was more analogous to Stone Cold Rock, you know, if they had the rivalry, I know they were involved in a story that pretty much spanned 2 years, but if they had the rivalry that spanned 5 years, you know, in WWF, and they traded that title back and forth, maybe the perception wouldn't be that Macho Man was a tier below Hogan in terms of popularity and prominence in 80s WWF.
Well, Hogan never did the job to him.
No.
You know, so it's like that was just the Mega Powers was just one more story to try to get Hogan even over more. Let's see here. Colel1616 says Tony Khan could successfully book WWE's roster. Triple H wouldn't know what to do with AEW's roster. Boy, that's a hard disagree on this one.
I don't know about that because for a while Tony Khan couldn't really book his own roster.
Next one, Phoenix. I can't put it any better than that. Phoenix no Kaiseki says, I prefer the full remote version of Steven Larson's pro wrestling podcast, ruining pro wrestling podcasting since 2014. Finally. Finally, people are appreciating remote Steven Larson.
I know. This is where I would say we're at our most comfortable because we're in our respective homes. We're just.
I was thinking about this the other day because, like, when you came over here yesterday, I went and I said, I was like, you know what? I don't even know why. I set up the camera over there in front of my couch because I wanted to get like a lighting scheme going, and I just wanted to try trying out some new stuff with my camera because now I got a new external hard drive. And so I put it over there and I set up some lights. It's like, okay, cool. This actually kind of works. And it looks pretty good. And I was like, man, I feel like, me sitting here and you sitting in that uncomfortable ass WWE chair next to me is not comfortable at all. But us both lounging on a couch next to each other or in like some decent chairs, I think it would be fine. But, like we talked about yesterday, we'd have to find like somebody to actually produce it up or we'd have to edit it. And on top of that, like I'd have to kind of mess with my office a bit just for like, so I don't know. I wouldn't rule out going back to an in-person for some of the shows that we do. But no, I think, dude, especially these days, I was watching a 30-minute clip of the Shannon Sharp Ocho Cinco one. They brought in ISO Joe talking about the Celtics and the Knicks last night. And super entertaining. Shannon Sharp is in his studio. Ocho Cinco and ISO Joe are both zooming in. And it's fine. Nobody says a thing. Yep. So, no, I do think that there is something to be said about I'm comfortable here. I sit down for an hour, and then we're already at home,
Yep. And in a lot of respects, it streamlines the workflow because, like, either if I was there putting stuff together, I'd be like, all right, you got to send me this, which we have to do anyways, but the alternative is, well, I got to go home and then I'll do it there. And then there's 20 extra minutes or 15 extra minutes for me to drive home, blah, 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 and it's just, this just feels streamlined and it's comfortable and we're used to it.
It's super efficient.
And it's super efficient because we don't have to, if we need to act on something, we can do it right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 I mean, it's been 5 years. Mm-hmm. It's been 5 years.
This is the way. This is how it's going to be for the most part.
This is the way. Yeah. Not to say there, things aren't fluid and things can't change.
Oh, yeah.
But in terms of like our default, this is. I honestly think that this show is better now than it's ever been before.
Same. Last one here from Vic DeMiser. 90s music hot take. Steve and wrestling like to gush over PJ, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, and Alice in Chains. Let's hear your favorite underrated 90s guys like Toad the Wet Sprocket.
It wouldn't be Toad the Wet Sprocket, I'll tell you what, buddy.
You don't like All I Want is to Feel This Way?
Nah.
You don't like that song?
I mean, if it's on the radio, I think I'd probably change it. Yeah.
What about Spin Doctors? Do you leave Spin Doctors on?
Nah, bro.
Good.
That's gone. That's gone. I can't stand them.
Soul Asylum.
Nah, man. Runaway train, never going back.
What about Live?
Live.
Like Lightning Crashes comes on? You're not changing that station.
Lightning Crashes.
You're not changing that station.
Probably not changing Lightning Crashes. Probably not changing any of the Live songs. Live was actually pretty decent.
Yeah, they weren't bad.
Yeah, they weren't bad. I got some names for you, though, man.
Hit me.
Okay, so, like, are we talking about, like, other, like, one-hit wonders from the 90s?
No, I think it's just underrated 90s bands. And
all right, so I know this band.
I have here, I guess one could be considered a one-hit wonder, but that's really unfair to them.
So I know this band right here, I think they actually began in 79. A lot of output in the 80s, but they kind of hit mainstream in 94. Bad Religion. I like Bad Religion. I'm a 21st century digital boy. Bad Religion.
All right.
Here's a one-hit wonder for you. And somebody mentioned this in our comments the other day. I was like, man, I fucking love that song.
New Radicals?
Local H.
Oh, yeah. Dun, dun,
Born to
dun,
be
dun,
down.
dun, dun,
Bound
dun,
to the
dun,
whatever
dun.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like them. That one song. I went and I was like listening to some of the other stuff today because I was like, oh man, I remember Local H. And they did a cover of TV on the Radio's Wolf Like Me.
Oh, that's interesting.
In like 2010.
Huh.
I mean, it doesn't really deviate too much from the original.
Wolf Like Me is a really good song.
It's a really good song.
Yeah.
Of course, Frank Black, former lead singer of the Pixies.
Yeah.
And then I put on here Sebadoh as well, who's Bake Sale's
Sebadow's a good
really
call. Yeah, Sebadoh is great. Bake Sale's a fantastic album.
Bake Sale's a really good album. Yeah. So those are the names that I have.
All right, I got 3 bands here. One is a band that I don't know if they ever had any chance to be in any way popular because their music's so kind of weird and angular. It's a band called Polvo.
Oh, sure. I remember them, yeah.
From North Carolina. I think they formed in the late 80s. They're part of like the Merge Records kind of scene, I guess, with like Superchunk. Fantastic band. On me personally, one of the most influential bands in terms of how I approach playing guitar.
Yeah.
Go check them out. Another band, somewhat related to Polvo because the singer of Polvo left Polvo to become the bass player of this band, Helium.
Okay, I've heard of them.
They had 2 really, really good albums in the 90s. Go check them out. I don't know if this band's underrated, but I feel like they kind of are, and that's The Breeders.
Oh, yeah.
Last Splash is one of the absolute best albums in the 90s.
I feel like a lot of people don't know them past Cannonball.
I know, and that's kind of like a mid song on that album.
Yeah.
It's a good enough catchy song, but there's so many better songs on that album.
Yeah. Yeah.
So go listen to Last Splash. Go pick up some Polvo and some
Also,
Sebadoh. Thank you for.
I was surprised. I thought you were
mentioning
going to
Sebadoh.
mention Pavement. Check out Pavement as well.
Pavement's pretty well known. They're pretty influential. That's why I didn't mention them. Have you heard about
Yeah, I don't know about that.
that Pavements movie that's like part biopic
I
and
did,
fictional
yeah.
retelling?
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. That's
is
pretty
cool.
cool. I'm just saying
They have a
they're not
movie
as well,
about them, so they're not that under.
They're not as well known as the top 4 grunge guys. That's my
Oh,
point.
no.
Yeah. They might be as well known as Toad the Wet Sprocket.
They might be more well known than Toad the Wet Sprocket. Nowadays?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm too old. I don't know. I don't know if people know anymore. Just don't know.
Well, how about, hey, people in the comments, do you know who Toad the Wet Sprocket is? Yes or no? Do you know who
yeah.
Pavement is? Yes or no?
Let's do a poll.
Just
Yeah.
simple. Toad the Wet Sprocket.
I
Yes or
hope,
no?
I'll be honest, I hope Pavement's more well known. I just don't know. Like, I think everybody knows that Toad the Wet Sprocket song.
They might know the song, but they might not know who does it.
That's a good point. That's a
Or
good
like,
point.
oh, I know. Hey, Jealousy. I love that song. Who does that? I don't know.
Hold on, don't tell me. Who does that one?
Jim Blossoms.
Yes.
Same band does Found Out About You.
Yeah, that's all right.
See, they were 2-hit wonders. They had 2 pretty popular songs.
Yeah. Anyways, that's going to do it for the show today. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll see you guys around.
Goodbye.